The wind outside the alien council chamber was dry and cold, carrying the strange metallic scent of the planet Varela. Ethan Cole stood at the massive silver doors, 2 armed guards on each side, their eyes glowing faintly under their helmets. He had been called here without warning, pulled away from his small quarters in the human district. The message had been simple. The council demands your presence. Today you will choose. Ethan didn't know what they meant, but the way the guards had marched him here made his chest tighten. The doors hissed open, and the sound of footsteps echoed on the polished black floor. Inside, the council chamber looked like a cathedral, made of crystal and bone, huge columns rising high to a glowing dome. 7 alien leaders sat in curved thrones, their robes flowing like liquid light. The one in the center, High Chancellor Varian, leaned forward, his voice calm but sharp. "Human Ethan Cole," Varian said. "Your kind owes us a debt, and today you will repay it." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening," he sighed, keeping his voice steady. Varian's golden eyes glinted. "Our race is dying. The plague took almost all our males. We cannot survive without outside help." A murmur ran through the chamber. Another council member, a tall woman with silver skin, spoke. "We have selected 2 of our finest candidates. Both are sisters, both carry strong bloodlines. You will choose one of them to mate with. She will bear your children." "This is law." Ethan's mind froze. He had heard rumors, humans on Varela being matched with alien women as part of population agreements. But this was different. They weren't asking him. They were telling him. He forced himself to ask, "And if I refuse?" The Chancellor's smile was cold. "Then we will find another human, and your usefulness will end." The crystal floor shifted, and from the far side of the room, 2 figures stepped forward. Both were tall, graceful, and unlike any woman Ethan had ever seen. The first wore light battle armor, her hair dark and braided, her eyes like burning blue fire. This was Lyra. Her posture was strong, but there was something tired in her shoulders. The second wore a long flowing robe, her skin pale with a faint lavender glow, her eyes soft and warm. This was Sira. Her hands looked gentle, but there was sadness in her gaze. They stopped in front of Ethan. Lyra's voice was steady. "If you must choose, then choose quickly." Sira looked down, whispering, "It will be easier if you do not think too much." Ethan studied them. He could see the bond between them in the way they stood close, their shoulders almost touching. These weren't strangers thrown together by the council. They were sisters who had probably been through battles, losses, and pain together. And now the council wanted to separate them. Something in Ethan's chest tightened. He had come to Varela as part of a peace exchange, not to be someone's breeding choice. But more than that, he could see that this was wrong. Not just for him, but for them. "Why only one?" Ethan asked suddenly. The chamber went still. The Chancellor's voice turned sharp. "Because that is our way. 1 male, 1 female. Always." Lyra's eyes flicked to him, almost in warning, but she said nothing. Sira's lips trembled slightly, as if she wanted to speak but feared the words. Ethan took a slow breath. He could feel every council member watching him, waiting for the moment he would pick. But the thought of choosing between these 2 sisters felt like standing in front of a loaded weapon aimed at both of them. He didn't know why, but a thought flashed through his mind. What if I refused to play their game? It was reckless, dangerous, maybe even suicidal. But looking into Lyra's fierce eyes and Sira's gentle ones, he knew one thing. He wasn't going to break them apart. He straightened his back. "I'll need time," Ethan said calmly. The Chancellor frowned. "You have until dawn. Fail to choose, and the council will make the choice for you." The guards stepped forward, escorting him out. As they walked, Ethan could still feel the weight of the sister's eyes on his back. Something told him they already knew what kind of choice the council would make, and it wouldn't be in their favor. Outside, under the alien moonlight, Ethan looked up at the silver sky. Somewhere deep in his gut, a decision was already forming. He wasn't going to choose one, he was going to save both. And if the council wanted a fight, they would get one. The next morning, the alien guards arrived at Ethan's quarters before the twin suns had even risen. Their armor shimmered faintly in the half-light, the hum of their energy spears filling the silence. "Come," one of them ordered in a clipped tone. "The council has allowed you time with the candidates before your choice." Ethan kept his face neutral, but inside his mind was running fast. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a test. The council wanted to see if he could be swayed. And they were watching for any weakness. If he showed too much preference for one sister, the other might be taken away before he had a chance to act. The guards led him through long corridors carved from crystal and steel, until they reached a tall silver door. It slid open to reveal a room unlike any other he'd seen on Varela. The floor was soft and mossy, glowing faintly underfoot, and the walls were alive with slow-moving vines that shimmered in shades of green and gold. Two figures stood in the middle, waiting. Lyra was there, in the same light battle armor as before, her hair pulled back, her eyes sharp and assessing. Sira stood beside her, dressed in a flowing pale gown that almost blended with the soft light. Her hands folded gently in front of her. The guards stepped aside, and the door sealed behind Ethan. For a moment, there was only silence. The soft hum of the glowing plants around them. Lyra broke it first, her voice low but firm. "So, you're the human who has to decide our fate." Ethan met her gaze. "I didn't ask for this." Lyra's lips curled into the smallest hint of a smirk. "Neither did we." Sira's voice was softer, but carried a weight of sadness. "They told us this would happen one day, that the council would decide who we belong to." She glanced at Lyra, her fingers brushing her sister's arm. "We thought maybe it wouldn't be so soon." Ethan studied them. There was no hatred in their eyes toward him, only a kind of guarded curiosity. He could see the unspoken fear between them, the fear of being torn apart. "I'm not here to break your bond," Ethan said quietly. The words made Sira look up sharply, and Lyra tilt her head slightly, as if measuring him again. "That's a dangerous thing to say here," Lyra warned. "The council doesn't care about bonds. They care about control." Ethan decided not to waste time. "I need to know who you are. Both of you," he said. "Not what the council says, but who you really are." Sira glanced at her sister before stepping forward. "I was trained as a healer. Before the plague, I worked in the outer villages. When the sickness came, I treated everyone, even those the council had abandoned." Her voice grew heavier. "That's why they don't like me. I broke their rules." Lyra's turn came with a colder edge. "I was a soldier. Fought in 3 border wars, defended the southern gates from the Krell invaders." She said, her chin high. "When the council ordered me to retreat and leave civilians to die, I stayed. Saved them. Disobeyed direct orders." Ethan understood. Now, these sisters were not chosen for their loyalty. They were being punished. The council had dressed it up as an honor, but in truth, this was their way of getting rid of 2 rebels in one move. "That's why they want to separate you," Ethan murmured. Sira nodded slowly. "Alone. We are easier to silence." Lyra crossed her arms. "And if you think you can protect one of us while leaving the other, you'll fail. You can't play their game." Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What if I didn't play their game at all?" Both sisters froze, their eyes locking on him. Lyra's voice was almost a growl. "You're talking about defiance." Sira whispered, "If they catch you, if they catch us, the punishment is worse than death." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not afraid of them," he said, "but I need your trust. Both of you." For a long moment, no one spoke then. Lyra stepped forward, her piercing eyes meeting his. "You think you can save us both?" she asked, testing him. "Yes," Ethan said, without hesitation. Sira's eyes softened, but her voice was still tinged with fear. "You would risk your life for 2 strangers?" Ethan's reply was steady. "You're not strangers anymore. Silence that followed felt like the air before a storm. Finally, Lyra gave a short nod. "If you're serious, meet us tonight in the Breath Garden," Sarah added. "We'll tell you everything. But if the guards see you, we're all finished." The sound of the door unlocking broke the moment. The guards stepped back inside, their faces expressionless. "Your time is over," one said. Ethan gave the sisters a final look, one that said more than words could. "I'm with you," as the guards escorted him out. Ethan's mind was already racing. The Breath Garden, he didn't know what it was, but it sounded like a place the council wouldn't approve of. Whatever it was, he had until dawn to make his decision, and he knew exactly what it would be. He wouldn't choose one, he would choose both, no matter what it cost. The alien night was quiet, but Ethan knew quiet didn't mean safe. The streets of Varella's capital were lined with tall crystal spires. Glowing faintly in the starlight, shadows moved where guards patrolled, their weapons humming softly. Ethan kept to the edges, his boots silent against the smooth black stone. Lyra's instructions had been clear. Come alone. No weapons, and no one must see you. He didn't ask why, because he already knew the answer. If the council found him meeting them in secret, his choice would be taken away, and the sisters would vanish before sunrise. He passed through the outer gardens, places meant for visitors, until he reached a narrow archway hidden behind a curtain of silver vines. It looked like a dead end, but when Ethan pushed gently, the vines parted, revealing a stone path sloping downward. The air grew warmer, richer, almost fragrant, and he could hear the faint sound of water. At the bottom, the path opened into the Breath Garden. Ethan stopped, stunned. The place was alive in a way the rest of the city wasn't. Massive flowers glowed with soft light, their petals shifting in the breeze, while tall trees with silver leaves arched overhead. The air was thick with a sweet scent that made him feel both calm and alert at the same time. Lyra was there, leaning against a smooth rock, her armor replaced by a dark cloak that blended with the shadows. Sarah knelt beside a shallow pool, her hands moving gently through the water, making small ripples dance in the light. "You came," Sarah said softly, without looking up. "I said I would," Ethan replied, stepping closer. Lyra's eyes scanned the shadows behind him. "You weren't followed?" "No," Ethan said. "I made sure of it." Sarah finally stood, her gaze calm but serious. "Then we need to talk quickly." Ethan nodded. "Tell me why this place is important." Sarah glanced around the garden as if it were sacred. "Before the council's laws, this was where our people came to choose their mates freely. No rules, no force, no council orders. Just choice." Her voice grew heavier. "After the plague, the council locked it away. They said survival mattered more than freedom." Lyra stepped forward, her expression sharp. "They also use it as a place to spy on those who rebel. If they find us here, they will know what we're planning." Ethan crossed his arms. "Then let's make sure they don't find us. Tell me everything." Lyra exchanged a look with Sarah, then said, "The council's law is not just about control, it's about punishment. They give rebellious women to humans so they can be relocated. One mate, one life, far from home." Sarah's voice was almost a whisper. "Once separated, most never see their families again." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So they're using me to get rid of you both." Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. "Exactly." Sarah moved closer, her voice trembling just a little. "You asked why you can't choose both. It's because if you do, they will call it dishonor. They will strip us of our names and mark us as traitors. And traitors don't get to live." Ethan's pulse quickened, but he kept his voice steady. "Then I'll get you both off this planet." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You're serious?" "I don't joke about lives," Ethan said. Sarah looked conflicted. "It's not just escaping. Once we leave, the council will send hunters. They will chase us to the edges of the stars." Ethan smirked faintly. "Then we make sure they can't catch us." Lyra tilted her head. studying him like a soldier would study a plan. "Do you have a ship?" "Yes," Ethan said. "Small. Fast, hidden in the outer docks." "They don't know it's mine." Sierra stepped closer. "And the guards?" "They'll be everywhere tomorrow during the choosing ceremony. That's when we use the chaos," Ethan said. "I'll stand before the council and do something they won't expect. I'll choose both of you, in front of everyone. They'll be too busy shouting and trying to stop me. That's when we move." Lyra's mouth curved in the smallest smile. "You're either brave or stupid." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe both." But before they could speak again, Lyra's sharp senses caught something. She froze, her hand going to the hilt of the small blade hidden under her cloak. From the shadows near the garden wall, a faint metallic sound echoed, like armor brushing against stone. "Guards," she whispered. Sierra grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him behind a large flowering tree. Through the leaves, Ethan saw two armored figures slowly scanning the garden, their weapons glowing faintly blue. The guards paused near the pool, looking around. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. If they were caught here, there would be no escape. One of the guards bent down, touching the ground where Ethan's boot had pressed into the moss. For a moment, it seemed like they would turn toward the tree. Then, a loud chime rang in the distance. The shift change. The guards muttered something in Tavrian and walked away, disappearing back into the tunnel. Sierra let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Lyra gave Ethan a long look. "Tomorrow. You have until the council draws its final breath before making your move. Once you say the words, there's no going back." Ethan nodded. "I wouldn't want to." They slipped out of the garden separately, making sure no one saw them leave. As Ethan walked back through the alien streets, his mind burned with the plan. Tomorrow would be dangerous, maybe even impossible, but if it worked, he wouldn't just be choosing. He'd be stealing both sisters right from under the council's nose. Asterisk. The morning of the choosing ceremony arrived with an unnatural stillness. From his small window, Ethan could see the alien capital shimmering in the twin suns, but something felt different. Too many guards, too many patrols. It was as if the entire city had been tightened like a trap waiting to spring. When Ethan stepped outside, two council guards were already waiting for him there. Armor was darker than before, edges sharper, their weapons powered and ready. One of them spoke without emotion. "You will come with us. The council demands your presence in the preparation chamber." Ethan didn't argue, but his mind stayed sharp. The moment he agreed to meet Lyra and Sierra in the breath garden last night, the game had changed. He wasn't just a guest anymore. He was a piece in the council's strategy, and they were watching his every move. The preparation chamber was built like a prison disguised as luxury. Tall walls of polished silver, no windows, only one guarded exit. Ethan was given ceremonial clothes, black and gold fabric, heavy on his shoulders. He noticed the designs stitched into the fabric, not decorative, but marks of ownership, the kind slaves wore in old Tavrian history. He didn't put it on immediately. Instead, he looked at the guard standing by the door. "Tell is the council afraid I'll run?" The guard didn't answer, but the flicker in his eyes told Ethan enough. Hours passed slowly through the open doorway. Ethan caught glimpses of activity in the Grand Plaza, rows of Tavrian citizens gathering, banners waving in the pale wind. He could see a raised platform at the center where the council would sit, and where he would be made to choose. When the guards finally escorted him out, the sound of the crowd hit him like a wave. Thousands of Tavrians filled the plaza, their voices low but charged with curiosity. They weren't here to celebrate. They were here to witness the council's control. Ethan's eyes searched the crowd but found no sign of Lyra or Sierra. His chest tightened. If they weren't already in position for the escape, this plan was over before it began. The guards led him up the long crystal steps toward the platform. The council members sat in a half circle, their thrones raised high, eyes glowing with authority. In the center throne, High Chancellor Varian leaned forward. Human Ethan Cole, His voice echoed. "Today you will make the choice that will shape the survival of our people." Ethan forced himself to appear calm. "I understand," he said, though every muscle in his body was coiled for what was coming next. Two side doors opened, and the sisters stepped out. Lyra wore ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine, but Ethan could see the tension in her stance. She was ready for a fight. Sira wore a flowing white gown, but her eyes darted quickly, scanning the exits. Ethan caught the faintest nod from her, the signal that their path was ready. The Chancellor began his speech, speaking to the crowd about unity, sacrifice, and survival. Ethan barely heard it. His focus was on the guards positioned around the plaza. There were more than he expected, and several had weapons drawn already. They weren't here for ceremony alone. They were here for enforcement. Lyra stepped forward first when her name was called, her chin high. Sira followed, moving with grace but staying close enough to her sister that their hands brushed. It was a small gesture, but to Ethan, it meant one thing. They would not let themselves be separated without a fight. The Chancellor turned to Ethan. "Now human," he said, "choose the sister who will join with you. One choice. One life. This is the way." The plaza fell silent. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He could feel every eye on him. The council waiting to see him obey. The crowd waiting for drama. The sisters waiting for him to defy the law. He stepped forward. "Slowly, I've thought about this," he began, his voice steady. "And I understand what's at stake." The Chancellor gave a satisfied nod, already believing Ethan would comply. "But there's something you should understand too." Ethan continued. He took another step closer to Lyra and Sira. "My choice is both of them." Gasps erupted from the crowd. The council chamber buzzed with outrage. Varian's voice turned into a roar. "This is forbidden." Ethan raised his voice over the chaos. "Then forbid it. But I will not break them apart." Guards moved instantly, stepping toward the platform. Lyra's hand went to the hilt of her weapon. Sira's fingers brushed the hidden device she'd smuggled in, the one to trigger the escape route. The Chancellor stood, his eyes blazing. "Seize them all!" he shouted, but before the guards could close in, a loud crack echoed from the eastern wall of the plaza. A small explosion lit up the air. The signal. Sira pressed the hidden switch, and somewhere under the plaza, a series of doors began to unlock. The crowd panicked, pushing and shouting. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him toward the platform's edge. Sira followed, her gown flowing behind her as the first guards reached them. Ethan jumped down from the platform into the chaos below. Their escape had begun, but the net was already closing. The council wasn't going to let them walk away. They were going to have to fight for every step. Asterisk, the plaza erupted into chaos. Shouts and screams filled the air. While glowing weapons sliced through the morning light, Ethan's heart pounded. But he forced himself to stay calm. Lyra and Sira were right beside him, their eyes sharp, ready for what came next. "Follow me," Ethan shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. Sira trailed close, pulling a small device from her gown, her fingers moving quickly over the buttons. The eastern wall doors were beginning to open, revealing a narrow tunnel lit with faint green light. Guards rushed toward them, their boots clanging against the stone. Ethan dodged a swing from one of them, pushing his attacker into the crowd. Lyra's weapon glowed bright blue as she struck two guards at once, their bodies collapsing with precise force. Sira activated a small energy net, temporarily trapping three more guards, giving them a small but critical lead. The crowd around them scattered, but many Tavrians stayed frozen, eyes wide. Ethan noticed a few pointing at him, whispering his name. He was becoming a symbol, even in this brief moment. He didn't have time to think about that now. All he could focus on was survival. The tunnel narrowed as they moved, forcing them to slow down. Ethan's grip on Lyra's hand tightened, and he could feel her tension. She was ready to fight, but she also trusted him, maybe more than anyone else had before. Sira's fingers flew across her device, disabling security sensors one by one. Every door and barrier they passed was a small victory, but the council would not let them go easily. Halfway through the tunnel, the first alarm bells rang. A deep, resonant hum echoed through the walls, the council's central alert system. Ethan cursed under his breath. "They're coming for us faster than we thought." Lyra glanced back, her eyes narrowing. "We can't stop. We have to keep moving." They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Sarah quickly tapped her device, reading the map. Left leads to storage rooms, right leads to the outer docks, straight is heavily guarded. Ethan didn't hesitate. Right is too dangerous. "We go left and we'll circle around." Lyra nodded, trusting his instinct. Sarah muttered, "This better work," but she followed without argument as they turned. They were suddenly met by a squad of elite guards. Their armor darker, their weapons bigger. Lyra stepped forward, glowing blade ready. "Ethan, go. I'll hold them." "No," Ethan said firmly. "We go together. No one gets left behind." Sarah pulled a small smoke device from her pocket and threw it to the floor, enveloping the tunnel in thick purple fog. The guards stumbled, coughing, but their voices still cut through the haze. "After them." One shouted. Ethan led the way, Lyra and Sarah close behind. Moving through the smoke like shadows, they rounded a corner and found a ladder leading upward. They climbed quickly, the metal rungs cold under their hands. Behind them, the shouts grew louder, the fog barely enough to slow the pursuit. When they reached the top, they found themselves in a high storage room overlooking the city's edge. Crates and containers were stacked haphazardly, providing temporary cover. Ethan crouched behind one, catching his breath. "Almost there," he whispered, scanning the area. "The docks are just beyond that ridge." Sarah knelt, tapping her device. "I've disabled the remaining alarms in this sector, but we'll only have a 3-minute window before they reactivate everything." Lyra scanned the rooftop, her weapon humming softly. "We make a dash, fast and low. No hesitation." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "Ready?" "On my mark." They sprinted across the rooftops, leaping over gaps, ducking under low-hanging antennas. Every second felt like a lifetime, every shadow a threat. The council's hunters appeared below, moving with calculated precision, but the sisters' tactics and Ethan's leadership kept them ahead. Sarah threw small energy pulses behind them, creating temporary barriers and confusion. Lyra struck out at anyone who got too close, her strength unmatched. Finally, they reached the edge of the docks where Ethan's ship waited, small, sleek, and almost invisible among the shipping containers. He opened the hatch quickly, ushering Lyra and Sarah inside. Sarah secured the control panel, while Lyra positioned herself to protect the entrance. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, starting the engines. A low hum built to a roar, and the ship lifted off, shaking slightly from the power below. The council's forces shouted and fired, but the ship rose faster than their weapons could reach. Ethan's pulse was wild, but he kept his focus, guiding them through the narrow gaps between the docks. Sarah monitored sensors. "They're still following, but just barely." Lyra gripped the railing, her breathing steady now. "We're not safe yet. They'll keep chasing us into space." Ethan smirked. "Then let's make sure they regret it." With a sudden twist, he sent the ship spiraling up and around, using the dock shadows to mask their escape. Sarah laughed softly, almost in disbelief. "I didn't think it would work." Lyra's eyes gleamed. "Ethan, you're more than just a human." For the first time, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. They had survived the impossible, and the council had no idea what was coming next. But he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The sisters were free for now, and Ethan had just made an enemy of the most powerful council in the galaxy. Asterisk, the stars stretched before them like a frozen river of light. Ethan's ship cut through the void, sleek and silent compared to the massive warships that pursued them. Lyra crouched near the edge of the cockpit, her eyes scanning every radar blip. Sarah's hands flew over the navigation console. fingers tapping in a rhythm that made Ethan wonder how her mind worked so fast. "They're gaining," Sarah said, her voice tense but steady. The Council's flagship glowed behind them, enormous, bristling with weapons that could shred their tiny ship in seconds. "Just how many ships do they have?" Ethan asked, keeping his hands firm on the controls. "Too many to count," Sarah replied. "But they're not coordinated yet. That's our chance." Lyra tightened her grip on the rail, her blue blade humming softly. "They'll surround us if we go straight. We need to split their formation," she said. Ethan nodded, understanding her plan without words. He twisted the controls, sending the ship into a sudden spin, banking hard around a massive asteroid field ahead. Sarah gasped. "That's risky. One wrong move and we're scrap." Ethan only smiled. "I've flown worse." The pursuit was immediate and relentless. Council ships flared their engines, trying to follow, energy being streaked past. Scorching the asteroid belts, Lyra struck out at incoming missiles with her blade, sending a few harmlessly off course. Sarah activated a small cloaking field, hiding their heat signature from scanners for a brief moment. Ethan gritted his teeth, every maneuver a gamble, but it kept them alive. "Here," Sarah said, pointing to a narrow canyon between two massive asteroids. "If we go in there, we can lose at least half of them. But we have to go fast." Ethan didn't hesitate, pushing the ship to its limits. The engines roared, flames licking the edges of the canyon. The ship twisted and turned, the walls so close he could almost touch them. One miscalculation would be fatal. As they exited the canyon, the remaining pursuers had lost formation. Some veered off into the asteroids, others hesitated, unsure. Lyra exhaled. "That worked. But they'll regroup." Sarah tapped another sequence into the console, opening a small wormhole map. "If we jump now, we can reach the neutral zone before they can repair and follow," she explained. Ethan hesitated, looking at the glowing entry of the wormhole. "It's unstable," he said. "One wrong jump and we'll be scattered across light years." Lyra stepped closer. "We have no choice. Trust her. Trust me. Trust yourself." With a deep breath, Ethan engaged the jump drive. The stars stretched and warped, turning into lines of light. The ship shuddered violently, almost throwing them from their seats. Lyra gritted her teeth, holding onto the rail. Sarah's eyes were wide, hands flying over the console, correcting every small deviation. And then, stillness. The stars returned to normal. They had made it, at least for a moment, into the calm of uncharted space. Ethan exhaled, feeling the tension drain, but he didn't relax completely. The Council would not give up, and they would find them eventually. Lyra leaned over, checking the external cameras. "We're not out of danger yet." "They'll trace this jump," Sarah frowned. "I can cover our trail, but it will take time. And we're exposed if we stay too long." Ethan rubbed his forehead, thinking quickly. "We need a plan to keep them guessing. We can't just run blindly." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "We split up. I take one route, Sarah, and you take another. When they converge, we reunite at the hidden base." Ethan hesitated. "We're splitting up in enemy territory? That's dangerous." Sarah shook her head. "It's dangerous either way. Better to scatter them than to let them follow in a straight line." Ethan nodded reluctantly, trusting their instincts. They made the adjustments, coordinates input. Small decoy drones launched to confuse the pursuers. Lyra's ship veered left into a dense asteroid belt. Using the jagged rocks for cover, Ethan and Sarah went right, heading toward a field of energy clouds, hoping the Council's scanners would struggle in the interference. As they separated, Ethan's mind raced. He could hear Lyra's voice in his ear through comms. "Stay alert, human. Don't get cocky," he smiled. "Wouldn't dream of it." Sarah adjusted the shields, her fingers steady despite the tension. "You know," she said quietly, "if we make it through this, the Council is going to rewrite every rule about humans and aliens." Ethan laughed softly. "I hope they do. We've earned it." Behind them, The Council's ships regrouped, their massive engines glowing bright. Ethan could see the distant streaks of light as they recalculated the chase. Lyra's voice came again, tense but confident. "Keep moving. They can't catch us all at once." Ethan nodded, gripping the controls tightly, feeling the bond between them growing stronger. In the vast darkness of space, they were small, but together, unstoppable. He realized then, the Council's power might be vast, their fleets enormous, but humanity, cunning, resourceful, unafraid, had a way of surviving against the impossible. And with Lyra and Sira at his side, Ethan knew they were not just surviving, they were going to win. Asterisk. The ship floated in the black silence of uncharted space. Ethan guided it carefully through the asteroid field, keeping the engines low to avoid detection. Sira checked the sensors again, scanning for any trace of the Council ships. Lyra stood at the rear, her blade glowing softly, eyes narrowed. None of them spoke much. They all knew this was their chance to rest, plan, and decide what came next. Finally, they reached a small moon, hidden behind a dense asteroid cluster. Sarah's device beeped quietly, confirming their coordinates. "This is it," she said, relief in her voice. "The base is intact, camouflaged from scans. No one will find us here for a long time." Ethan exhaled, letting himself relax for the first time in hours. Lyra finally sheathed her blade, her posture easing slightly. Though her eyes never stopped scanning the horizon, they landed quietly on the moon's surface, the base's metal doors sliding open. Inside, it was a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Clean, organized, and quiet. Ethan stepped out first, stretching his muscles, feeling the artificial gravity pull him down. Lyra and Sira followed, their expressions softening for the first time. No Council ships, no alarms, just the calm of safety. Even if temporary, Sira moved quickly, checking systems and supplies. "We have enough food and water to last weeks if necessary. Shields and defenses are online." Lyra examined the communication system. "We can stay in touch, warn others if the Council comes too close." Ethan nodded, impressed. "You both really thought of everything," Lyra smirked. "We've survived worse than this together. One more Council fleet won't scare us." Ethan leaned against the console, his mind heavy with thoughts. He had been given the impossible choice. Choose one sister to save their race, or risk everything for both. Now here, in the safety of this hidden base, the decision no longer felt like a choice between survival and duty. It was about loyalty, trust, and what it meant to fight for more than just yourself. Lyra walked over, her glowing blade tucked at her side. "Ethan," she said softly, "you didn't have to choose. But you did. You saved both of us." Sarah nodded, her eyes bright with emotion. "Most humans would have chosen the safe option, the easier path. You didn't." Ethan shook his head, smiling faintly. "I don't see it as a choice. You're both important, and I couldn't just leave one behind." Lyra stepped closer. "And now the Council will be after us harder than ever." Ethan shrugged. "Let them come. They may have numbers, but we have something they don't, trust and courage." They spent the next hours planning, reviewing maps, and preparing the base's defenses. Sira worked tirelessly on communication systems, hacking Council networks for intelligence. Lyra trained, refining her skills, ensuring she could react to anything the Council sent their way. Ethan stayed at the control panels, plotting escape routes, thinking through contingencies. Together, they were a small team, but united in purpose, unafraid of what the galaxy might throw at them. As the moon's artificial night cycle began, Ethan looked at both sisters, feeling a sense of connection he hadn't expected. He realized that this mission, this impossible choice, had brought them closer than anything else could have. Lyra noticed his gaze, her expression softening. "You know, human," she said lightly. "We didn't think anyone would risk themselves for both of us. Especially not a human." Ethan smiled. "Maybe that's because most humans don't have the chance to meet two warriors like you." Sierra laughed quietly, the tension easing. We're dangerous, yes, but loyal. And we fight for what's right. Just like you, they stood together, overlooking the moon's horizon from the base's observation deck, stars twinkling far away. The council fleet still a distant threat. Ethan felt something settle in his chest, pride, relief, and a strange warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. The sisters, too, seemed at peace. Knowing they were safe for now, but ready for whatever came next, Ethan turned to them. We made it through the impossible. We'll survive whatever comes after this together, Lyra nodded. And the council will remember this. A human who didn't just survive, but saved more than one life when all odds were against him. Sierra smiled. I think they'll have to reconsider everything they know about humans. Ethan laughed softly. Let them. We've learned that survival isn't just about power or numbers. It's about courage, trust, and refusing to abandon those who matter. Lyra's hand brushed his shoulder, a simple gesture, but full of meaning. Sierra's eyes met his, bright and steady. And we'll make sure that courage isn't wasted. In that hidden base, among the stars, 3 unlikely allies had turned the tables. The council's threats were real, but so was their determination. Ethan knew the battles ahead would be hard. But with Lyra and Sierra by his side, he also knew one thing clearly: they had each other, and that made them unstoppable. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but in that moment, inside their hidden refuge, the impossible had been conquered. The human had chosen both, and together they would face whatever came next. No regrets, no hesitation. Only courage, loyalty, and the promise of survival.